right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, Jonas, Siegel of The Athletic, and there he is, Jason Strudwick. What's happening, gentlemen? How are we feeling this afternoon?
Jonas, how are you, bud?
There he is.
I'm great. It's good to see you.
Likewise. Always good to see our relationship at a distance. Long distance relationships can be hard, but I think we're managing it, buddy, pretty well.
Doing great.
Yeah, do you guys generally see eye to eye, or how does this generally work? Can I pit the two of you against each other, or are you going to team up on me?
I think we're going to team up on you.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes.
Okay.
You have such bad opinions. It's really easy.
Well, if you want to challenge me out of the gate, throw something at me, Jonas. You guys can team up. And you got anything you want me? Go ahead, Strud. What do you have
I'm
for
nervous
me?
for the Leafs tonight. I'll just call it as I see it, right?
Yeah?
Like, I think this is a big one. You got a D-man coming back, hopefully. That'll help, but he's going to be a little rusty, kind of like your golf game, Hayes, when you hit the floor in early April. So I'm nervous, Leafs fans. Listen, I'm nervous about the Oilers as well, so I'm not picking sides here, but Leafs fans, I'm nervous.
I think there's something to that. I think, it's a beautiful day here in Southern Ontario. Lots of sun. It's starting to warm up. Shorts weather for Jonas. I hope you got out for another run today in shorts. Jonas was running in shorts the other day.
Really?
Yes. He's a big shorts guy early in March, which I didn't have you pegged as shorts guy.
I'm not. It was a mistake.
Were you cold?
No, but immediately when I stepped outside, it was just like gale force winds.
Right.
And I was like, okay, you made a mistake.
Right.
So you can go back or you can just keep going, and I just kept going.
So you're a trooper. That's why you are who you are. You just continue to forge forward.
I kept it really tight.
As you should. But
how short's tight? Is that the old dog 5-kilometer run? You look like
tighter
you can
than
run
that.
a long ways.
I could. I did not. I think it was 3.5.
3.5 kilometers?
Yeah.
That's a twirl. That's enough.
That's around the block.
Just sweat.
Get a sweat going for you? Okay.
Sweat.
That's 3.5.
Were you running uphill?
No.
Sprinting?
No.
Okay. Hey, it's more than I've been doing recently, I will say that. So, in terms of running, getting outside, I'm not a big outside guy in March.
You're a treadmill guy?
I'm more of a try to get on the treadmill and get moving. And the thing is about the treadmill is I find I have to start with a walk. You got to start with a walk, right? You got to ease into the treadmill. You can't just jack it to speed 10 and start you got to ease into it a little bit. And I have difficulty figuring out when I'm supposed to transition. You know what I'm saying? You do a walk. Is it a 5-minute walk? Is it a 2-minute walk? Is it a 10 or 15-minute walk? And sometimes I just continuously walk and say that's enough. I'm not in the mood to run today. But
is it different if you're at the gym? Do you feel pressure to start going faster?
I wouldn't say pressure necessarily, but I go to Planet Fitness a lot. There's one out by me, and what is interesting, Strud, and you guys can both appreciate this, is a lot of times it's determined by what the other people in the row are doing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? In other words, if you go in the middle, if two guys are running, I'm I don't know if I'm walking this one. I don't want to, there's a mojo going here, where if you have walkers, then you feel a little bit more comfortable, easing in with the walk, and then picking up and then looking down on people that they're walking and you're running. Because that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for other walkers in my lane. I don't want a hero that's doing sprints and stuff like that. I don't want anything to do with that. So I usually try to pick my spots where there's other walkers. I'll walk, and then I'll start running, and then I'll look over and be like, oh, you're still walking. That's interesting. But that's
Jonas,
lazy.
let's be honest.
Lazy.
I know what Hayes does. Hayes, you're the kind of guy that decides at the gym, I don't want to work really hard. So you walk it, but then you use the side shuffle technique on a bit of an incline to make people think you're really working hard. The side shuffle at slow doesn't do anything.
Yeah,
and I see people doing it. I look over, I'm like, buddy, just go home. You're wasting your time. You're taking up a machine. Get out of here. You're wasting all of our time.
It is quite the fascinating. People watching at the gym is pretty wild stuff.
Well, and you must feel guilty how long you're on it. You're 10 minutes enough, or can I get off?
Well, that's another thing. What exactly? Is this just wasting everybody's time? I don't know. And in reality, people probably couldn't care less what anybody else is doing at any point. But it is good to get out, and it's, again, good weather. And you said it, Strud. There's some nervous energy. You mentioned Chris Tanev. Tanev's a game-time decision, which I find that a little bit hard to believe.
I do too.
Right? We believe he was dealing with a shoulder. He got hit. Something to do with shoulder or ribs. He left. Where was it in Boston? He got hit. Yeah, he got hit in Boston. He left in a sling, but then the next day they said they got good news. He's been skating. And they said he's a game time decision, but I find that hard to believe.
The only
I think
thing I would say is, like, I was at the skate. Myers was out longer than a guy who is for sure playing. So it's maybe it is game time decision. I've just never, I don't know, straight like.
Your read was that Myers didn't like bag skate to the point where it's like, you're definitely not playing.
Yeah, but it was on the line of like, you might not play, let's get some extra work in. Mm-hmm. That's how I read it.
Okay.
I mean, like, I've always been dubious of the game time decision, but.
Yeah. Well, I'll say it this way, Jonas, and I think your point is well made, but I think that when it's a longer, because how long has he been out? Is
it's
it
like
2
weeks?
Yeah, two and a half
2 weeks. Yeah. I think when you get to 2 weeks or longer, you kind of have a sense of where it's at and how it's feeling, because you may have been skating for a bit, you've worked out. But like, let's say the injury happened last night, then I do believe the game time.
Yeah,
right? So I think a short window is different than this long window. So I would be floored if he doesn't play tonight. Like he'd have to have bad sleep on it in his afternoon nap, slip or something. Like, it doesn't make sense. So the longer the period is, I believe you do know when you're coming back and you're like, I'm ready. Because I never was a game time decision when I came back from long time injury, and they're like, you're just playing. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm playing. Like, that's the way it was.
Yeah, and he wasn't out long. Like, he didn't do any of the extra stuff that you would do if you're not playing. And, like, I wonder if in his mind, like, this game, he doesn't want to miss this game.
Well,
if he can play.
As big of a regular season game as you're going to get until they play them again down the road. Like, it's pretty clear here. They have 3 against Florida, 1 against Tampa.
Crazy.
Those are the big games the rest of the way. Like, you're trying to avoid those teams, and Florida's got a 2-point buffer on you right now. You have a game in hand. So you got to find a way to get this tonight, and ideally in regulation. And it's not going to be easy for Tanev because Florida – they forecheck very hard. Obviously, they're one of the better defensive teams in the league. They're coming in a little bit ornery considering they blew a 2-0 lead in Boston a couple of nights ago. And they've got something to play for as well. Like, we'll play the Max Domi clip here in a moment. I'm curious how you guys feel about it. Like his approach to winning the division as if it's some sort of outlandish goal to think winning the division would be beneficial or whatever. We'll play that momentarily, but it's a tough spot for Tanev to walk into, yet it's an important one because I think his presence, Strud, like this should be an elevated game. This should have the feeling of an elevated game when you know who you're playing, you know what's right around the corner, you're beyond the trade deadline now. You insert Tanev into the lineup. That is a big, big boost, and they need him. They could really use him because they have been playing at times horribly defensively recently, and if you get him back, then everybody's healthy, and you take it from there. And I think it's a big opportunity. Them coming home, they got a home stand here. They've been on the road a lot. They've been playing a lot of games. They haven't been happy with their game. You put Tanev in, Stolarz gets the start. You come out of this with 2 points tonight. Like that's a big momentum swing, big for the Leafs.
Well, and this is like pretty close to what actually it might be if he plays. That could be their game one lineup. Like it's not. I don't know who
is it going to be Benoit that's playing instead of Myers, so he'll play on the right side with Ekman-Larsson tonight?
Yes. No, I would think Ekman-Larsson plays the right side. Yeah.
That I'm not sure Benoit is a lock for game one, but we'll see.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Okay.
But that's the 6th defenseman. I mean that's going to possibly change every game in the playoffs or multiple times between now and game one. But I agree. This looks like it could be a game one lineup tonight.
But let's just say, like, I think what might happen with Toronto is they might kind of have like a 5-man rotation in the playoffs, and then that 6th guy is kind of spotted in because the top 5 is pretty solid. And as far as Tanev, guys, this is why you got him. You brought him in for these games, right? He's been in big games before. I mean, he played. Remember that one series against Oilers for the Flames? He literally couldn't hold his stick. He went in there and played. Like, this is why you have him. You want him for these big games, these big moments. So I think him coming back right now is the perfect time to come back.
Well, I was just going to say, Hayes, like I went back and looked. So they lost to the Panthers earlier in the season. It was late November, 5-1. And if you look at that lineup that they dressed, they just had no one.
So up front in particular.
Yeah, like like Matthews is out, Nyes was out, like Camp was out, like they were dressing a bunch of kind of like AHL guys-ish. So now like you get to kind of see what your team is, right? You know what I mean? Like coming out of the trade deadline, this is your full lineup. What does it look like against the class of the NHL?
Yeah, and Stolarz got that start. He wasn't happy with his play. Right. But at the time, Florida, I think, had lost 3 or 4 in a row, too. Remember, they were not happy either. I remember Paul Maurice kind of calling out his team and saying, we got to show up here. And they came out hot. Florida was up 2-0 pretty quickly, and they never kind of looked back. But that's a game in November. And to your point, now we're into mid-March. We're closing in on the playoffs. You're going to play this team a few times. And I think Tanev returning, having a full roster up front is certainly a litmus test for the Leafs. But I think also for Anthony Stolarz, because he didn't like his game against Florida. And that was the first time all year he had really said anything of the likes, because he had been playing so well and been so consistent that he wasn't happy with his game. And this is a big opportunity and big platform for him to prove that you can go up against Bobrovsky and the Panthers and in a big game at home where there's going to be some electricity in the building. And as of now, I think he's got the upper hand on Joseph Woll, but that is not 100% certain either. And I think games like tonight, Strud, like Stolarz has got to prove he's got what it takes under the brightest lights, because this is going to have somewhat of a playoff feel to it tonight.
Yeah, it sure will. And, he knows that team pretty well, obviously. And I don't like using the word statement game, but for no one else other than himself, he's got to know that he can do it in these moments and be that team. Let's be clear, though. Florida's not a fully loaded team either.
Mm-hmm.
They're missing, arguably, I don't know, Jonas, their first or second best defenseman.
Yeah.
They're missing, their two most irritating players for sure
Yep.
in that lineup. I mean, what does Seth Jones play that night? I think he played 28 minutes or something.
Playing a ton. Him and Forsling are playing a ton.
That was crazy. 28 minutes. And, I'll be interested to see. I want to see what Seth looks like tonight. That was a big acquisition for them. So, it's still you want to win the game, obviously. But if you're the Leafs, you just want to come and play your game and show them that we're the same as you and we can beat you anytime. Full lineup, minus lineup, doesn't matter.
Yeah, and you're right. Ekblad out, Kachuk out, Marchand out.
That's big.
That's big. Like those are three player. Marchand still hasn't played at any point for Florida, so you don't know exactly how he's going to mesh in and what his impact's going to be. But if he's healthy, he's a guy. He's one of the only guys in the league, maybe the only one, that would push like Matthew Kachuk out of the way if he were playing. Like in terms of, or a Sam Bennett or a Barkov. Like the idea of Marchand playing for any team and the history he has against Toronto, he's the only guy, might be the only guy still in the league from that 2013 team. Obviously he was on the ice a lot when it was 4-1
Was that the
minutes
series
to go.
he licked Komarov or not? That series?
Yeah, that would have been, because Komarov, was Komarov still there in 18? In 2018, was he still there?
So gross.
Yeah, I don't
Or had he
think
moved on?
by that point. I think he was in Long Island.
He might have been gone. So then it must have been. It must have been in 13.
That's something
look
that
that up,
happened.
Duthie.
That's something that happened.
That happened. We're looking up a reference of
Just
when
disgusting.
someone licked somebody else during a playoff series.
We licked Callahan too.
I was going to say, he did it to Callahan.
Twice.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's disgusting.
It's just
I don't even like licking
outrageous.
popsicles, much less another human
If
being.
he makes
It's
the
just
Hall of
outrageous.
Fame, that should go on his Hall of Fame plaque.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
which one?
Won a
Although-
cup with the Boston.
Like he's done it all. He's licked.
He has.
He's been accused of biting, I believe.
So it was 2018.
It was in 18. Yeah, so Komarov still was there. And then Callahan was like the next round or the next year.
Oh,
like it was within
disgusting.
the same range. I think it
someone
might have been
licks
the
you-
same playoff. Look that up, Doogie. I think it might have been in the second round. They played Tampa, and he did it to Callahan like a week and a half after Komarov.
Did he get suspended for the Callahan one? Because I know he didn't get suspended.
He
for
didn't get.
Komarov.
I don't think he got anything for either one.
God.
Like I don't even know if he got fined.
Because I guess they never thought of this in the rule book. Should we have
Well, why
a rule?
would you?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Why? If someone licks you, you can do whatever you want back to them. That should
That
be the rule in the
rule.
book. If someone licks you, you have 2 minutes to do whatever you'd like to that person back. Because it's just wrong. Like that is just absolutely disgusting.
Yeah,
it's
I
just
know.
the grossest thing.
What is the deal here? Hold on, Doogie. Come on the mic and explain.
Come on, Snoop. Figure it out, Snoop.
Come on, Doogie. Step up here with Brad Marchand. What was the licking, timeline?
So Komarov was game one of the
Timeline.
first round,
That was in 2018.
2018,
Okay.
and then the Callahan was game four of the second round between the Bruins and Rangers. So, same playoffs.
Same year in 2018. Wow.
Yes, sir.
I think he had a great response to the Komarov one, if I recall. I don't remember what he said, but it was funny. He's perfect for that role, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, that seems a little bit extreme. He took his glove off and tried to choke a guy this year.
I remember that.
Who was that? Cousins, I think it was?
Yeah, you guys were very outraged about it.
Well, I thought it was absurd.
He didn't get
He
suspended.
didn't get anything.
Yeah.
Like the league did absolutely nothing.
They must be just charmed by him.
Well, listen, he's a big personality. He's one of the great quotes in the league.
Oh, yeah.
And he's going to carry that over to Florida. If anything, I wonder if when he plays, they're going to have to reel him in a little bit. Like you got to settle down a little bit because he's going to try to impress them. He's going to try to stick out. He's going to.
He's like 37.
I think so, man.
He's like.
Yeah, but that's the point. He's never been anywhere but Boston.
Yeah.
Like it's a comfort zone thing when he's in Boston, and now he's not necessarily going to have it in Florida, and he doesn't have much rope left, like in terms of how much more of his career he's got. Yeah. So if he can't do it at the same level in terms of offensive production and skill set and skating and all that, it's more than likely if he's going to be stuck, if he's going to stick out, it's because of the other stuff.
Agitate?
Yeah, agitate. And I think that's what Paul Maurice and company are looking for.
Yeah.
Like, you got to keep it within the lines. You can't be stupid, and you can't cost your team. You can't be licking people. But I think Marchand has a real chance of getting a little bit crazy here.
I got to tell you, watching that game, the Panthers-Bruins game the other night, I am now rooting for them to play in the first round. So Boston obviously has to do some work. But can you imagine that?
Yeah, the idea, like, with their history Panthers. From a couple of years ago, what would be amazing is the roles would be reversed.
Right.
Where, like, 2 years ago, Boston was a massive favorite. Juggernaut, and Florida got them. If it went the opposite way and Boston found a way to beat Florida, that would be pretty incredible.
With Marchand.
And I will say that about Florida, that I think they're the best team in the East. Like, I think they deserve that respect if they're healthy. I think you look at the way they're built, what they've done the last couple of years. But they've played a lot of hockey the last 2 years. And it's very difficult in the Stanley Cup playoffs to just consistently win. Like and to keep your foot on the gas, right, Strud? Like, that's the crazy thing. You look at some of the, like, Tampa did it 3 years in a row, made it to a Cup final. The Islanders back in the early 80s, and it just crazy. Like, 5 years in a row, they were in a Cup final. It's absurd. But it is tough to show up and always be ready and always get the breaks and,
like the Chiefs this year, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, they got to the Super Bowl,
right?
But eventually they ran out of gas and they got smoked.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I guess when I look at this Florida team, they play a really emotional brand of hockey. So, you look at Tkachuk, you look at some of these other guys they have in that lineup. And can these guys keep that up all the time? Now, Marchand's coming in. He's not going to be tired like the other ones, although this isn't Marchand from that run we talked about in 2013. But, can they get that emotional connection to this like they have in the past couple of years? Because they're not fun to play against. When I look at them just up against the Leafs, when Tkachuk or Marchand or Bennett raise that up and bring that physicality, who's responding for the Leafs? And I'm not talking about fighting. I'm just talking about pushing back and getting hits. Through this lineup, I don't know who it is. Maybe Scotty Lawton gets in there. He's one guy, but
Domi,
Carlo, maybe he's not known as a real hammer guy.
Carlo's not overly edgy. No. Like, that's the thing. He's big,
pushback.
But yeah.
Again, I'm not talking about starting a brawl like we saw the other night with
Zadorov grabbing Bennett.
Yeah, and Bennett. Like that, Zadorov loves that, and Bennett loves it too. But because it's going to happen. And if I'm Florida, I'm like, guys, let's pound these guys. Let's hit them, get in their face. And are they going to respond? So, Matthews is a big body. Can he hit back? Can some of these guys, just stand up? You don't have to fight them, but you can't just take it for 7 games straight. Yeah,
the names off the top of my head, Matthew Nyes is a guy that can't. He's proven he can hit. He can push back. Bobby McMahon's got to do that. McMahon's got to do that. Domi's got to play the role of a Marchand type. Like, you got to keep it within the lines, but you're tough enough. You'll get in there. He's got stones. He's got courage to get in there. McCabe can do it to an extent. Ekman-Larsson, to an extent, can be greasy. But I hear what you're saying, Strud. I mean, that's what it's going to be in Florida's wave after wave after wave. And, tonight is about proving yourself, when the puck drops against Florida, but also about trying to pursue that top seed in the Atlantic, which is a big discussion outside of the dressing room of the Leafs. But here's what Max Domi had to say when he was asked, I think, a very reasonable question. Like, what do you make of trying to win the division? Seems like it would be beneficial for the Leafs. Here's how Max responded to that.
We don't. That doesn't matter to us. We were just trying to beat every team we play against, and every game is just as important. So focus day by day and game by game, and good test tonight against defending champs. So it's gonna be a fun one.
All right. Well, my thought on that is that he is echoing the words of his head coach, who that's a classic Craig Berube. We're just thinking of each individual game.
I can promise you the division matters to them.
So why is he saying that publicly then?
I don't know. I don't know. be contrarian. I don't know. Like, I don't
Well, I think it's about messaging. It feels to me
it
like
downplays the game a little bit. But
Downplay
like, that's
it.
not how.
Also, if you miss, it's not a panic. Like I think what he's trying to express here, whether you believe it or not, and I don't, because you'd be silly not to look at this and say, obviously you want to win the division. You should want to anyway. It doesn't matter who you might play or not play.
Sure.
It gives you home ice, right? Like every team in the league, obviously you're trying to pursue that. But I think it's about, if they don't get it, that doesn't mean the sky is falling, A. B, Berube and through Domi, hockey lifers and all that. The cliche is we take it one day at a time. And that's what I'm hearing there, Struddy, is thinking about the division means we're not thinking about this game tonight, if that makes sense.
Sorry, but they're connected, right, Strud?
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do.
Like the point being is we're all we do is we get up in the morning and we work hard that day. It's just like the Babcock thing. Like if you do it right every day and you do the process, that's all this sounds like to me. It's cliched. It's not truthful to your point, but I understand why he's trying to express it the way he is.
But I do agree with him that you have to just worry about the day by day kind of improvement and all that. But let's be honest. Would you rather play Tampa or Florida or Ottawa or Columbus?
Yeah.
Right? In the first round. Like, come on. Like that's
We all know the answer to that.
Yeah, no disrespect to the Sens, who I think they're going for 4 or 5 tonight, or Columbus, who are an unreal story. Adam Fantilli, the way he's playing, but come on. Like, let's just be honest for a second, because that's a way harder road. If you have to play Tampa and then Florida and then, I don't know, guys, I guess, is it going to be Washington? Whatever.
Yep.
That is 3 hard series just to get to the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
And then you got to play someone out of the East here, or West, I should say.
Absolutely. And like I'm assuming a similar conversation's happening in Edmonton, Strud, where all of a sudden it's about home ice in that first round. Like LA is a point behind the Oilers with a game in hand. Edmonton's in Jersey tonight, but they're still within striking distance of Vegas. And you're going to play the first seed, though. If you win the Pacific, you're going to play the first wild card, which I think is likely Minnesota. Mm-hmm. I'm not like would you, if you're in Edmonton's shoes, would you prefer to play LA in the first round or Minnesota in the first round?
Well, I mean, how many times can you beat the same team in the playoffs before they get you? Right? Like I think LA is a pretty good team. I didn't love what they did at the trade deadline. I mean, I'm sure there's a few Kuzmenko fans in that studio there right now, but not you, Jonas. I'm not talking about you.
We're aligned.
Not Jonas.
But I'm not a huge. But I think they are a pretty good team. They're big. They can get around. But I think the bigger thing for the Oilers guys is I'm not even thinking about who they're going to play. It's the way they're playing right now. They're not playing very well.
Right.
They don't have. I think their puck management's been a struggle for them. The way they defend, their net minding has been a bit inconsistent. Connor McDavid looks like he's kind of getting his groove back at that Connor McDavid level, but there's still quite a bit of time left. But I would feel more comfortable having that conversation, knowing that they're playing well, rather than right now. I'm like, I'm not sure the way they are presently playing, could they beat any of those teams you just said in a 7-round series?
I hear you. I mean,
game.
That's the truth. And it's going to be a tough game tonight because Jersey's in a similar spot. They're struggling. Like they've been kind of leaking oil here for a while. And then you're going through New York. You got the Islanders tomorrow. You got the Rangers. They've got 3 games here in the greater New York area. The Oilers, Ekholm is not even on the trip, so it's going to be a big few games here in a big few weeks for the Oilers. More on that as we move forward this afternoon. James Duthie will join us in studio. Leafs Panthers on TSN 4 tonight, so JD's coming up in studio. We'll get to that. Emily Kaplan of ESPN. I've got my list, Hazy B's list. I got 5 players playing on Canadian teams who need a great stretch run. Non-goalie edition. All right, because
nice.
I've taken out the goalies because you could say Skinner and Wolf and Stolarz. There's a number of goalies. You could probably make the whole list goalies. So 5 players that need to have a great stretch run for a variety of different reasons. But we'll get to that a little bit later this afternoon. Jonas is in here. Struddy's in here. I'm Bryan Hayes. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We'll get to our same-game parlay for the game tonight, Leafs Panthers, which you can see on TSN 4, which means James Duthie will be on the panel, and he's in the house, and he joins us here in studio. What's happening, JD?
Not too much. How are all the boys?
We're doing very well. We got Struddy out in Edmonton. He's jacked for the Leaf game tonight.
There he is.
There he is. Just,
Hello.
He's setting up shop. There he is.
Struddy, one of the stars of Certified Beauties, the sequel to Beauties, popular book coming out next fall.
Okay.
A full chapter on Struddy.
Oh, love it. I love it. How much of it is about his...
He may be on the cover. It may just be him on the cover.
From the Spangler Cup. His Spangler
Sex
Cup.
sells.
I don't think this sex.
Sure does.
I don't think the Spangler made it.
No, the Spangler years did
pretty
not.
much a lot of great Struddy stories.
Okay.
I was very lucky to have him.
We look forward to that.
Had to hassle him for about 6 months. But
Yeah, he's, tough. He's tough to get.
had to go through his people.
Who's that, Rashog? You have to go through Rashog to get Struddy these days?
Rashog
My
wants
dog Walker.
Rashog wants a piece of everything these days.
Absolutely. He is a businessman out there in Edmonton, man. He runs a tight ship. But this is a good one tonight. Like every, what is it, September, I guess, it comes out like the different games we're going to have on TSN every year, and you look through it, and this one is as good as it gets with the
Like the
Panthers
dog
in
days
town.
are over now.
Yeah, it's
right?
go time now.
And not just, it feels that way. It's starting to feel like spring outside, and we're past the deadline. And, you always get those games in Jan and Feb and early in March. But now I feel like this is kind of the official start where it's real. And these 3 games, I mean, they may not decide the division, but if one team was to get 5 of the 6 points, they probably win the division. I'm not a good odds guy, but don't you think they probably win?
Yeah, it sort of
probably win the
matters.
division. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very significant. And it's interesting if they would, who would be more comfortable just splitting the points? Like if each team...
Well, so I was looking at schedules.
The strength of
schedules. Florida's is a lot easier. I shouldn't say a lot easier.
the Leafs have
easier.
an easy schedule compared to the rest of the league, do they not? Or
They don't. This is tankathon.com.
But
I don't know how accurate this is.
Okay.
But the Leafs are 22nd and Florida is 13th.
Okay, the strength of schedule thing though, because I've been quoting it nonstop for the past few weeks, and then we put up a board the other night. I was doing the Sens game, and the difference between like the third hardest strength of schedule and the easiest strength of schedule, it's like you're from facing a 522 points percentage to a 501 points percentage.
Right.
But-
So it's not like one team has all dogs and the other team is playing Colorado and Tampa and the Avs sort of back to back.
But if you look at Florida, it zeroes in on their toughest matchups. Their toughest matchup is basically the Leafs and Tampa.
Okay.
And the Leafs have
That's fair.
Florida 3 times, Carolina, Colorado, LA, Tampa, and Ottawa.
Yeah, that's fair.
So,
yeah.
Fair.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Well, I mean, ultimately, if you're either team, I mean, these 3 games are incredibly important. To what
Winning the
you're getting
division
to.
is more important to Toronto than it is to Florida.
Would be something
I
that
think
we
so, yeah.
focus in on these 3 games and they go, battle, and then Tampa wins the division by a point.
Which is possible.
And we get a best of 7
Yeah,
between these two sides.
Which is possible, too. And Florida, listen, Florida's
Oh, wait a second.
got more going to, Tankathon.
You lied.
It's the
Oh, boy.
opposite. They have the strength.
Wow.
It's the other way around.
That's what I was
How do we,
thinking, Jonas.
Who do we know who to trust anymore?
I don't
Never
know.
trust a guy who runs in shorts.
Runs in shorts and trust the internet
opposite.
implicitly.
Is it the opposite? I don't know.
My impression was that the Leafs do not have an overly difficult schedule, but what they're going to do is run into a number of teams that are fighting for the playoffs, right? Like that's a reality as well. You got Ottawa on Saturday night. Ottawa plays them incredibly well. They always have, and Ottawa's in a really good spot. And like Vancouver, that was a big win for them last night. Huge win, right? Was that an overtime or a shootout last night? Did Garland win that in a shootout? I think it was a shootout.
Garland won it.
Yeah, Garland won
it
it in a
was
shootout last night.
Yeah.
But, it kind of feels like we're going to get 5 Canadian teams in there, JD. Like,
Yeah, I
into
do.
the playoffs.
I feel like, and this is probably disrespectful to the Canucks and the Flames, but I kind of feel like that wild card is going to be first round fodder a little bit.
Although they're playing
just-
Winnipeg in the first round.
Yeah, but I think that's disrespectful to Winnipeg just because they were bad last year. They've been great this year. I think Winnipeg will win whoever they play if they win the division.
Yeah.
Gets a little dicier if it's Colorado or Dallas. That's like the Central and the Atlantic are very similar. Don't you feel like? Like how critical it is to win the division because the 2 versus 3 in the Atlantic and the Central I think are going to be the 2 best first round playoff series. Now, of course, we know it's hockey, so any second wild card could. Now, we were saying the other night with Ottawa, if you win the second wild card in the East, this will sound disrespectful to Washington because I think Washington is a wagon, but they haven't really been there recently. And Carolina's kind of damaged by the whole Rantanen thing, and Jersey's damaged by no Jack Hughes.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel like the second wild card team, whoever that is, if it comes out of the East, might have a decent shot to go through the Metro.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. I think it's a great spot to be in if you're Ottawa. Because they've played Washington very well this year, too. Like, they've played them really, really well.
But then you get the first wild card, and you probably get Florida, Tampa, Toronto, and then you get Florida, Tampa, Toronto in the second round.
Although, if you're playing Toronto in the first round, it's the same reputation.
Right.
Like, whoever gets the Leafs in the first round, if it is a wild card, they'd be like, all right.
I wonder if you did a straw
kinda like
poll,
where we're
like in
at
the
here.
Senators' dressing room. Would you rather take, Washington in the first round or the Leafs in the first round?
That's a great question.
Might be split.
That's a great poll question. Who would Ottawa prefer to play in the first round?
I think they'd just rather play somebody.
They just want to get
after
in.
the last 7 years they've
Yeah,
had.
they want to punch
and
a ticket.
that's no guarantee.
They want to get in, but don't you think you want to be the spoiler if you're the Senators to play the Leafs? You know you're going to be on the road. I mean, I think that the pressure would all be on the Leafs. I don't think for the Sens there'd be any pressure at all in that series. So it's not a drop.
Wouldn't even be close.
Especially after we build up this. As long as you win the Atlantic, you're in great shape. And then if they avoid, they finally avoid Florida, Tampa, and Boston, and then they would lose to the Senators. That would be
sickening.
that would be the disaster of all disasters.
Yeah, it'd be sickening.
By the way, I have this thought in my head
Canada's
that I can't get out of my head since Struddy said running in shorts with Jonas.
Running in shorts.
My first Stanley Cup final was the 2006 Stanley Cup final, Carolina and Edmonton. And, I was still, go to the suit on the off day, wear the suit on the off day, go to the practice for availability.
Mm-hmm.
I was stunned one day when Ken Campbell and Al Strachan both ran to the rink. And so they were in the scrums in those little, the kind of shorts we wore in gym class in grade 8,
boy.
the ones that went well above the thigh,
Yeah.
like halfway up the thigh, kind of like Daisy Dukes, but Adidas shorts.
That's not a good look.
And I'm leaning a mic
For
in.
those two guys, too, in particular.
Strachan and Kenny Campbell sweaty in these little tiny shorts. And I'm like, what world have I joined here?
Yeah, that's
Larry Bird.
old school, man.
It did. It looked like two Larry Birds right next to me.
Only they're each like 5'4". Like they're not 6'9" like Larry Bird.
I just didn't know you could run to the rink
Yeah.
for availabilities. I guess that's the writer's world.
We had this conversation the other day.
Yes.
For me, that is completely unprofessional.
Do you ever show up at the
unacceptable.
scrums in the shorts?
So no, but here, let me ask you a question here. So in the playoffs, they don't really, this, James, they don't practice. So on off days, they usually do their availability at the hotel. And when you're in Florida, you don't really want to be in, it's
fair.
40. Is that okay?
I don't
What are
think
you wearing?
shorts,
What are you
Throw on a
showing?
pair of pants and a golf shirt.
What about
Tank
nice
top?
shorts like you would wear to a golf?
Are you tucking in the golf shirt?
Are you laying stand?
Never.
Is it a tight tuck?
Never.
You will not tuck in a
I
golf shirt.
refuse.
What are you, a hippie or something? You
Oh,
refuse
No,
to do that?
Jonas.
Why do I need a tuck?
Why?
Are you a tuck?
A tuck is a professional move. If you tuck in your shirt,
It's
it's
lame.
That's the job, Jonas.
Nah, that's a loser move.
I think you need to get with the times here, Jonas.
so that's a no.
Well,
No
I
shorts.
think it goes a long way. I think if you're going to wear shorts, you got to tuck in the shirt. At a minimum, I think you got to.
I think
put
Bobby
in
Mack
some effort.
in his last years at some cup finals would show up in sweatpants for those avails, but it was Bobby Mack.
Yeah.
Right? He could get away with anything.
Are
right?
we talking like Lululemon, like somewhat stylish?
Yeah,
kinda,
Bobby
like,
always
on
had,
point?
Bobby always had style.
Okay, so
he could do
that
sweatpants.
I guess so. I mean, and listen, Strachan and Campbell, Strachan covered the game for a long time. He'd probably be like, I'm in the Hall of Fame.
fairly legitimary writers.
Yeah, they.
But I
probably
was
say
just I
whatever.
wanted the shorts to go a little bit further down the thigh.
I think that is
We all did.
reasonable. This will be Mitch Marner's first game back home since the no wave. What do you expect tonight? Like, do you think the crowd has any acknowledgement for him, or is it even on the radar
What are
of
they
the
going to
fans?
do? What do you do?
I don't know.
I mean, if anything, I suppose you'd give him a warmer ovation because they want him to stay, sort of thing. And the fact that what does it mean what he did? Does it mean he wants to go to free agency, or does it mean he
Well, no one
never
can
wanted to
interpret
leave the
that.
Leafs?
That's the thing.
I
No
think
one has an
I think
interpretation.
the
on
average
that.
mass fandom would interpret it in a positive way, that he didn't want to waive, that he wanted to stay here and ride it out with the Leafs. But I don't think there'll be any more or less reaction.
But don't you think it changes it? it changes it a little bit. It's like if you're in a relationship and someone says to you, just stay here for a second. I'm going to go over and look at this corner and I'll hopefully to find someone better. Then you bring it back. Like, I think it changes the relationship between Marner and the team.
But what about
I'm not just
it doesn't
saying,
change the relationship between him and the fans, though.
No, not the fans, but the team. I mean, because it's like you wanted to take somebody else over. We love you, Mitch. We love you, but we love this guy a little bit more. And when in fact we want to trade you for him, I think it changes it. I'm not saying he's leaving, but I don't think it's as sweet as it was 2 weeks ago, guys.
Yeah, and that angle hasn't really been talked about a lot, like how Marner is supposed to interpret the Leafs asking him to waive. Like, is that...
No, they would say, we want to sign you. That's our priority.
Right.
But if we can't sign you, we'll take this guy who's better than you, basically.
Well,
arguably.
I don't
Well,
think
it wasn't their
better
spin was it was our obligation to come to you because they asked
which
us
is
sort of thing.
completely
But,
bogus.
No, of course, if they didn't want to,
If they just said,
they didn't have to bring it.
we
to them.
love you, we're not trading you for anyone.
Right.
They could do that.
Well, exactly. Like, what if Carolina called and said, we want Austin Matthews? Well, we better go tell
better go
Austin. Hey, Austin, someone called
Sebastian
about
Aho, we can get Aho.
Yeah, like, it's our obligation to tell you. Obviously, that is completely...
You know what, though, might be different
ridiculous.
is, like, the perception that they want to sign him and he's saying, we think, I'm not ready to sign. So it's like, does he want to stay? As
Well,
now
what about
entered the equation?
Like, as a
wasn't
guy who's
before.
in that scrum all the time, like, how do you think the scrum in Toronto is going to respect his wishes to not talk about it the rest of the way?
So he hasn't spoken since he came back, and they just got back. I don't know. Like, he clearly, you saw it on Saturday, he did not want to talk about it.
Right.
And answered as best he could without talking about it. So I think he would do the same.
Well,
But
it doesn't just
die,
similar
right?
messaging, but like not as much media was in Colorado on Saturday night as there will be tonight after a game.
It's
like
an
tonight.
awkward thing to ask in a scrum too, like to really, if you actually want to get what's
especially
going on.
after a game, if something crazy happens during the game. It's This is the thing though about the way the room works now. There's no just pulling a guy aside.
Not
like it used to be 20 years ago. You just sit there and maybe talk to him or whatever. Like the Leafs aren't going to allow that. Marner's not going to allow it. But yeah, I'm curious what kind of, how that story kind of hangs over him the rest of the way, and then the team, and then the fans. Because like a game like tonight, he's got to have a big game. Like Marner's got to perform tonight, and I think there's more pressure on the Leafs, obviously, with Florida, doing what they've done the last couple of years and what the Leafs are trying to achieve. And we mentioned it earlier, James, that like Stolarz, this is a big one for him because he's played his former team once. They lost 5-1 in Florida back in November. He's got to get after it tonight.
It's a big stretch for both of those guys because we spent most of, before the Four Nations break talking about how this was the best 1-2 combo in the last, decade, 15 years for Toronto, something like that. And though they've been, they had that 5-game winning streak coming out of the break, but they've both been I think they're both sub 900 save percentages since the break. And so, look, Craig Berube says he's going to keep the rotation going. There's no urgency to pick his guy yet, but you want to, when he's going to pick his guy, let's say if he's going to pick a guy, because that's still, I suppose, debatable, but he's probably going to pick a guy with a couple of weeks left in the season, and you would want to be making it a tough decision on which guy to pick because both are rolling. You don't want to have a default pick or, oh my God, which guy do I pick? I don't think that'll be the case. They're both good enough goalies. I think Stolarz will get going. But you're right. This is like for both these guys, it's time because, I don't know. What do you think? Like, Struddy, what would you want to know your starting goalie by the playoffs if you're a defenseman in front of him? Would you like to know 5 games before or something?
I think that the players will know who they like to start. So in my head, I'm like, I think it's this guy. And then you're just hoping the coach goes along with it. And I think a coach has an idea this far out, guys. I really do. I just can't believe that you wouldn't know.
Right.
But he wouldn't know for sure, right? Like he would have Stolarz is like right ahead
probably
right
got to
now.
be thinking Stolarz, right?
Right, but it's not like it's a layup. It's not like Vasilevsky, Johansson.
Fair point.
Right.
Fair point, Jonas.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what comes with a tandem, but he can't have an idea of what he wants his opening night lineup to look like. Like now that we're through the trade deadline, there's nothing else. Like, yeah, you might run into injuries or slumping players. I mean, that's something you might possibly have to adjust to on the fly, but no one is coming through that door that isn't available to you as of tonight. And Chris Tanev possibly returning tonight. That's pretty significant
that would be
as well.
massive.
That's big, man. Like they've really, really missed him, which says something about the way the other guys have played. but also the way he's just settled in. Like, he's just been a great addition to this team. Like,
But to see those two together too, he and Carlo together.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's something I want to see. That's what they've been looking for, right? These big guys that can do those things. So I think the two of them together will be interesting.
Will they put them together though?
No,
Oh, not together,
You
but I
just
mean,
means like
you mean-
right.
oh,
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're right. To get our first look at what a playoff defensive core
Yeah.
would look like, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah,
Well,
so
and
not together, just
and
in the
it
same lineup.
filters Oliver Ekman-Larsson into a position where he should be, like a third pairing
Right.
veteran. Get him in better matchups, maybe start him in the opposition zone more, and just everything's going to filter in properly. And that is significant about tonight as well. Carlo makes his debut, and Scott Laughton as well. And I'm sure Laughton's going to have family and friends and everyone. Those are always cool stories. Like, how thick do you
His
lay
mom.
it on tonight? Yeah, everyone's going to be there. I mean, I'm sure he.
Yeah. The other thing is you should be able to pounce on these Panthers. There's no Kachuk. They don't have Brad Marchand yet. They don't have
No Ekblad.
Ekblad. I mean, Seth Jones is. You wonder if they knew about.
I'm
Think
kind of
they knew
wondering
about
that
the
too.
Ekblad thing when they got Seth Jones. Like
I
this
don't know.
stuff
Was it-
filters
How would
through,
they
right?
know, I guess?
Well, isn't there little negotiations behind the
Oh,
scenes
yeah.
on these suspensions? Sometimes I'm always thinking that the team has a few day heads up
Yeah.
on this. I don't know if that would have been about a week heads up, maybe more,
More.
right?
Well,
yeah, so they probably didn't know.
Like 10
But
days, maybe?
like if they came back and said we got to test that guy again,
Right.
that's when you're like, maybe we should get Seth Jones. Hey, can we see Aaron Ekblad for another test, please? Anyone else? No, just Ekblad, please.
Who's that guy that's mad in Chicago? Let's see if we can get that guy.
Yeah, let's see if we can find that guy, right shot defenseman. But yeah, that's a good point. Listen, Jones plays a ton of minutes. Like, he plays a ton of minutes. He played a lot the other night. He'll continue to do that. He and Forsling is a top pairing. That's going to be tough nut to crack, but the Leafs have got to do it.
I saw, I don't know, it was FanDuel that Florida's odds of winning the division are listed at like 51%, and the Leafs were 34%, which I found interesting with what you said about strength of schedule.
But I was
only
wrong.
2 points separate. No, but you said the Leafs was an easier schedule.
Yeah.
Didn't you? Yes.
I don't know. I still don't know if that makes sense because I'm looking at the teams they
Are you
play.
going to
and
flip
it's like,
again? Are you going to flip?
Yeah, well, like
flip
the
again?
teams the Leafs play are harder than the teams that Florida
Add the
plays, so I
tariffs,
don't
drop the tariffs, add the tariffs.
What are
drop
we
the
doing
tariffs.
here,
Who
Jonas?
are you?
Yeah,
Come on,
because
Jonas.
that's who I really want to follow. I see that plan. It makes a lot of sense.
It does seem like you're wavering a lot right
It's a
now.
roller
I
coaster
don't know
with
how
you,
to read
Jonas.
What's going on in the players? Give me a players update.
Yeah,
right now.
well, you know what? The scoreboard or the leaderboard was not exactly chock full of big names.
Yeah, it was like Vajegas was 6 under when I left my
my
little room to see
Aaron
you.
Smalley and Bud Cauley and
That's
stuff.
that's a very typical first day at the players.
Yes, but
And you always get scared. And usually by Sunday, there's some combination of Scheffler, Shoffley, McElroy,
well,
something in
I'll
there.
give you a few big names. So
If
Lucas
Scotty's like 3 under, then you know he's going to be up by 3 come Sunday.
Lucas Glover's in the clubhouse at 6 under. He's got the lead right now.
Got
but
that. He's got that. What are those putters called?
I
Those
don't know what they're called. Like the
lab,
two-handed-
the lab putter.
Yeah, because he
All my buddies have them now. They're like a grand, and they apparently balance everything out so you can't open or close the
Rich
club face.
friends.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've never used one
They
before.
are.
I've seen them. They look
Much wealthier than I am.
they don't look comforting.
They're too big. I would
Yeah.
try my buddies last year because there's a lot to them, but the science says they're great. I wasn't trying to get on a lab putter.
Lucas Glover obviously is very supportive of
He
that,
has one,
but
yes.
Glover's doing well, but McElroy's 3 under, Fleetwood's 3 under, Scheffler's 2 under. He's still in the course.
Did any of you watch the Creators Classic yesterday? I guess you were on the air.
No, I didn't see.
So
any of it.
YouTube golf has taken off. So they actually had a tournament with like the most popular YouTube golfers,
Right.
which was pretty fascinating. Some of them are really good, but there's one guy on Barstool, Trent Jones or something, I think his name is, and I guess he won a Barstool playoff to play. He was they played 8 holes and then a 1-hole playoff to win. He was 28 over.
Yeah.
So and it was fun to watch a guy. They had real commentators,
Right.
And they're playing from the backs. At the players,
Right.
and this guy's making an 11.
Didn't
He put 5 balls in the water on 17,
That's
and
what
he
I heard.
kept hitting,
Yeah.
which was kind of icing the guys who were in the lead group behind him. But it was, I've always said there's a place for the everyman golfing under normal golfer circumstances,
Especially at these type of courses.
Fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I don't want to see him at some course in Florida that has no affiliation with the
Right.
tour. I want to see you play a place like this. Now, think Augusta will ever do that?
No
Think
shot. It
imagine
would be the
Augusta-
best, but they will never do
Come
it.
on in, Trent. Come play Augusta National and let's see
No.
what you got.
No.
Yeah, but you're right.
I probably got his name wrong, by the way.
No,
I'm not.
I know it's Trent. I don't know his last name, but I saw him on 17 just Like what do you have, a 13 or something like that? On
Yeah,
the hole? Like,
and there's one hole
absurd.
that had like a 230-yard carry.
And you can't do that.
So he didn't do it. He just hit it. He hit it to the side, like where no other player would ever try. He hit it about 100 yards to the side, so he
Right.
did his second over it. But it was, I don't know. I find it oddly fascinating.
I think it's really
like
smart.
watching clowns like you and me golf.
Exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And then you have a greater appreciation for how much better the professionals actually are.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's just
Was he
it's
in
not even
shorts?
close.
They were in short shorts. Yes, they were.
Okay. Well, that makes it even better. All right, JD, we'll catch you on the panel tonight.
Yeah, little pregame at 6:30 and
Beautiful.
game at 7. Marty Biron in for Jeff O'Neill.
Yes.
So
Are you getting his daily updates on golfing? He claims that he's had 6 birdies every round.
Yeah, that's
He
like
was writing it today. I'm like, dude, please stop.
that's like the epic time. I don't know if it was last summer, 2 summers ago, where he came in and said he shot his career low 66 at
Weston, I
Weston,
think.
and then came up with a story about a lost ball that he just took a free drop.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. It's like, well, I mean, we knew it was around here. I'm
Yeah,
like,
so I got
that's kinda-
66, but I couldn't
Yeah.
find my ball once, so I just dropped
Technically,
it.
it
'cause
was.
I would have found it.
Right. White steak,
Just
and
a
I should have reteed, and actually I shot 73, but never mind. All right, buddy. We'll catch you on the pregame.
All right, thanks,
tonight.
guys.
James Duthie, Leafs Panthers on TSN 4. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Hazy B's list coming up in the next hour. Emily Kaplan of ESPN as well. Bunch of games in the NHL tonight. The Raptors winning last night. We'll touch on that. Like, there's nothing they can do. They're playing a G League roster, and they won by 13 last night. It's really astonishing to see what's happening at the bottom end of the NBA right now. So we'll get into that. And Vladdy Guerrero Jr. not talking to the media now, or at least not today. Requested to come out and speak. They were in Dunedin. He was in the lineup playing, and everyone's like, well, all these new reports are out there about what you're looking for and what the Blue Jays were willing to offer, and now Vladdy's he's not speaking. So we'll touch on that and whether or not he's got an obligation to. And what about the front office? Where do they come into play on all this as well? Jonas Siegel in here of The Athletic, Jason Strudwick. I'm Bryan Hayes. Hour 2 coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.